Welcome to Art, Nature, Science on the Binna Burra Cultural Landscape, the podcast that tells the story of the mountain's natural wonder through art making and exploring the creative spirit, and celebrates the history and heritage of this magnificent World Heritage Area. My name's Michelle Walker, and I'm joined today by Billy Shannon. Billy is a Brisbane-based visual artist whose work is heavily influenced and informed by his meditation practice. Billy's recent work involves perceiving and conveying the sentience of plant life, especially what is felt when one is immersed in such a forest as the one that surrounds Binna Burra Lodge. Hi, Billy. Welcome to the podcast.
Hi there, Michelle.
So you've got an art practice that's closely linked to your meditation practice. I think this is such an interesting topic and something that personally is relevant for me. Can you tell us a bit more about that? How did you come to find this way of working in your creative practice?
Essentially, I feel that art is like an expression of the forces that move around us and through us, the Dharma. In this case, the Sentience series started when I was in a Vipassana meditation course. It's a 10-day silent meditation retreat. I was walking in the forest about halfway through the course and looking up at the trees, and I suddenly was just stunned and just overawed by the sense that these must have intelligent life and communications between them. I mean, admittedly, in a 10-day silent meditation retreat where you're meditating between 10 and 17 hours a day, you're pretty connected, and also your imagination's going pretty wild. But it was also a question of like, what is sentience and why should animals, in our understanding of nervous system, be the be all and end all of intelligence and communication? When you're like deep in a meditation, sometimes time seems to slow down, like when you're painting or something like that, when you're deeply involved in your work. But in meditation, it's different because your work is just to observe. And when time slows, everything seems to overlap, all the feelings. And I could feel the breeze going through the trees, like the breath going in and out of my lungs. I was just taken by the connectedness between what was outside and what was inside. My work's always on a multiple level. I work in 100 or so layers of paint and varnish, often with different images overlaying each other. So I try to capture this sense of the multi-layered reality that I was feeling as I walked through the forest. Like when you're in a meditation course, or for me personally, in this course, everything seemed to be vibrating. I suppose I was trying to express that in the work.
Mm. So tell me, when you actually had this sense when you were on your Vipassana retreat in Tasmania, what was it that you saw or you felt from the trees that you really wanted to express?
Okay, it was the sense that they were passing messages.
Mm.
They were leaning into each other and communicating. And later on, I started to research this. I wanted to get something apart from my own feelings. I started to read people like Monica Gagliano, an Australian scientist. She wrote an excellent book called Thus Spoke the Plant, and Susan Simard, Finding the Mother Tree,
Mm-hmm.
and Martin Shell's Entangled Life, which is more looking at fungi, but they're all scientists exploring how trees communicate and how
Yep.
trees feed each other. And the mother tree is generally the oldest tree in the forest, and she gives intelligence and her energy to the other trees around it. Like when the mother tree dies, she passes all her energy to the other trees around her.
Mm.
In relation to the multi-layered aspects of my work, it also allows the viewer to bring what they have feeling and what they have found to the work. We all kind of perceive things differently, colored by what we bring to each moment. Uh, and I think that's the artwork is an interaction between what the viewer sees and what my concepts may be. And when you're walking in a forest, not everybody experiences the same thing. I could be walking next to somebody and I've had certain things happening during the day or feeling, ill or feeling fantastic. And I could perceive this beautiful, sort of shift in life and the scent of a tree, completely different emotions to the person standing next to me. But those scents that the trees are sending out
Mm.
is part of their communication. They communicate both through scents that is taken out through the leaves and also through the fungi underground.
Yep.
Uh,
Isn't that fantastic? Like when I discovered that bit of information, and I don't know if you've seen Fantastic Fungi as a documentary slash piece of entertainment, but it's absolutely brilliant. And I just love this capacity that once we open our eyes to understanding the communication and the intelligence that's operating, what that can then do for us as humans and how we can expand our ideas about what's out there and what we can experience when we're in the forest.
Absolutely. I actually tried to bring that into one of my paintings, which is simply called Sentience. It's actually the first of the series that was developed after the meditation course. And it's a view looking up into the trees and the trees kind of leaning into each other. It's one of my circular paintings. But on the back of the painting, where the viewer doesn't see, I've actually painted the fungal networks that go underground and all the roots and
Oh,
everything
how
like
interesting.
the unseen communication.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so I suppose a few people would know, I mean, the people who hang the painting or the owner himself.
Person who buys it, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But most people wouldn't perceive it. And that's kind of what we get when we're in a forest, where
Mm.
we see what's within our perceptual range, but we can't see what's underground and
Becomes
see
part of the hidden story.
exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that you have to go looking for. So I know that you ran a workshop as part of the Art Nature Science program last year around this concept of sentient nature of trees. Tell us a bit more about that.
Okay. Well, I was quite excited about going to Binna Burra and having the opportunity to explore further in the forests of Binna Burra my meditations and connectedness to the forest. During the workshops, I brought some of my paintings with me and showed the participants the work and explained to them how I came across this whole concept. And most of them were actually there for the meditative aspects of it because my intention during the workshop was to talk about my art, but also lead a small meditation, helping people to connect to the forest. I think the majority of people that came to the workshop were already pretty connected to the forest, and they were all, I think,
As many visitors to Binnaburra are, they're
well,
connected to the forest of Lamington.
I think it's almost
Yeah,
impossible not to be when you're
yeah.
inundated by it. The three aspects of the workshop was one to show them the work, talk about my work, and the next to talk a little bit about the research that the other scientists or the scientists have been doing. Uh, as I said, Monica Gagliano is virtually a local
Mm.
scientist. She lives in northern New South Wales. She was involved in southern Queensland in the science industries. And then I wanted to give a short meditation. I'm not a meditation teacher. I've been practicing meditation for 35 years or something, and I meditate every day, but I'm not a person who can teach you meditation. I just wanted to help people slow down and
Mm.
sense what was around them. And so we did a 10-minute guided meditation. It was interesting the shift in the feeling before
Mm.
the
Yeah.
meditation and then afterwards. But then they wanted to have a second meditation afterwards. So we went outside and stood amongst the trees and did another 10-minute meditation. And that was very exciting. And I
Mm.
loved all the aspects of that.
So, what
Uh,
is the artwork that's been emerging after the workshop that you ran at Binnaburra? Tell us a bit more about that.
Okay, well, I've continued the Sentience series. There's a rather large painting called Mother Tree, which is exploring the life of the mother tree and the function of the mother tree in a forest, and how we're at the end of the mother tree's life, how she gives all her energy, all her intelligence back to the forest and back to all the plants, not just of her own species, but what we would consider to be competing species,
Mm.
because all species are important. So this is the one thing that's come out of it. The other thing is I've been starting to develop a visual book, which may or may not contain poetry. It relates to meditation and the opening up into the forest and an exploration of how, through the meditative process, we can feel and try to understand the secrets of the forest and how the forest is trying to connect to us and trying to connect to itself. And maybe we can get a glimpse into the intelligence of the forest.
Mm.
The image that is related to the podcast is part of it. That's a sense of breathing and breathing in all the greenery of the forest, all the fungi and all, the scents that the trees are giving out, um, and losing ourselves. Because sometimes in meditation, the meditator disappears, we become nothing really, and we just sense. But to try to express that in the painting, apart unless it's just white, it's very difficult.
Yeah, it's a very interesting topic, isn't it, of the sensory process, trying to put that into 2D. And in a way, I find there's a lot of parallels between that loss of self when you're meditating and also the loss of self when you're deeply involved in your art making.
Exactly. You'll be working or meditating, and suddenly an hour or two's gone by, 3 hours has gone by.
I think that this is such an interesting topic of the interweaving between our sense of ourselves and our spiritual practice, if we can call it that, and this relationship that we have with the trees and the forest, and how pure that is in a place like Lamington National Park, where there's not been a lot of human interference. And so you've been capturing an aspect of that I think a lot of people feel when they visit.
I think you can't help but feel the strength of the forest there. And as you say, the lack of human intervention. Each time I go there, and I hope to go there quite frequently, drinking in the forest and dreaming up ideas. And I think it's very healing for them to go to Lamington. Like the facilities at Binna Burra, I really enjoyed it. The fact there's these sort of short and long walks and information there, and the artists work there. It's, I don't know, I found it to be quite exciting and stimulating. It sparked a whole pile of new work for me in a way.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
I love this concept. I've only recently, in the last couple of years, bumped into this Japanese concept of forest bathing. But isn't that a magnificent concept that we don't have in English? We don't have a word for that. And yet we've been talking about it the whole time on this podcast episode, and we've been experiencing it, and it's been influencing our art. And I just love the idea of forest bathing, that you go and you stand in a forest and you are washed clean. There's some aspect of our energetic renewal that occurs. And
yes, that's true. I think that is also electrical or energy in the forest, what the Buddhists would call Dharma.
yeah.
It's this energy that comes through the forest, and it sort of takes away the tensions. There's also, I suppose, I mean, as you say, forest bathing. I think forest bathing is quite an opposite way to put it, because it feels like you've just dipped into this forest sea. Yeah. Cleanse yourself and always come out relaxed and kind of tired too, because when you lose all that tension that you carry all the time, there's this sense of exhaustion.
Yeah, that might also be the 30 kilometers you just walked out to the border track in, or something.
I mean, I think that's one of the good things. You can go on these huge walks and be gone for days, or you can dip your toe into the forest bath.
Yeah. But as we wrap this conversation up, Billy, I want to throw some rapid fire questions at you. So the idea is, don't think, just give me the first thing that comes to your mind. If you had to sum up Binna Burra in one photo, what image comes to your mind?
Oh, I think a deep green and tangled mossy warmth, something that you can just fall into. It's not really a good photo, but it'd be fun.
Sounds like a fun activity.
Yeah.
What does art, nature, science mean to you?
That's quite a fascinating thing, because science and art have been connected since science and artists have been doing their thing. Everything is inspired by nature.
Yeah.
So this whole sentience work I've been developing has been like how to express the enormity of nature in a two-dimensional form, even if it's a really big canvas or it's a tiny book. It's how do you get the whole world into a nutshell?
So that's my next and last question in this rapid fire question section is, what's inspiring you right now in your art or in life?
Well, I would say that the word that came to my mind as you were asking that question was breathing. Just breathing in and relaxing, breathing in everything that I feel around me and trying to connect to everything else around me and try to heal and trying to heal myself and to heal our relationship to nature and each other. I think basically that's all my artwork, all my life has been about. And you just keep exploring and clarifying to make the healing more palpable to people, more accessible to people.
And it's ours to do for ourselves first, isn't it, really, as artists? Our job is to explore this topic of healing ourselves so that we can be more present and more joyful.
Yes, and that is also related to our nature bathing, our forest bathing, by going into the forest and being able to connect all the little things that annoy you. It disappears because you have this enormity and you have, like I was expressing, the Dharma or the universal energy just pulsing through you and pulsing through the forest and giving us life.
I find it's the sacred in the small. You know, I'll get completely enamored by a new frond that's pinky red against all that green, and I'll just completely want to dive in there with my camera and take photos. So that's the way that I find myself letting go of that stuff of life that might be stressful. So there's the enormity of the beauty of the forest, but there's also this incredible power of being drawn into the sacred in the small. That for me is just beautiful. Okay, I need to wrap up today. So Billy, how can people connect with you and your artwork? So you said your website is billyshannon.com. That's very straightforward. Do you use any social handles? Is there any other way people can get in touch with you?
Yes, well, via my website, you'll see Facebook and Instagram. There's also email, which is just beaming@billyshannon.com.
That's beaming, as in a beaming ray of sunshine, beaming smile, beaming at billyshannon.com. I love that.
Yeah.
Perfect. Well, thank you for joining me today and talking about your artwork and the topic that you raised with your participants at the workshop last year. And we hope that we'll be able to see you up at Binna Burra again sometime soon. Thank you so much, Billy.
And thank you so much. It's been wonderful.
Producers and the artists on this podcast acknowledge the traditional owners of the Binna Burra area and Lamington National Park, the Yugambeh language group. We also thank Catherine Slingsby for the podcast theme music, an excerpt from her piece, Sweet Dream.